Welcome to Torah Talk, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Torah Talk, brothers and sisters.
Breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. People now.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Torah Talk Show with Lew White and Mark Davidson.
The SICKLE Series,
a Torah Institute production.
I speak to you today during a time that's holy and filled with meaning for believers around the world. Earlier this week, Jewish people gathered with family and friends to recite the stories of their ancestors' struggle and ultimate liberation. Tomorrow, Christians of all denominations will come together to rejoice and remember the resurrection of Jesus Christ. These are two very different holidays with their own very different traditions, but it seems fitting that we mark them both during the same week.
Hello there.
How are you, brother?
Good morning. Good evening. It's upside down, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, mate.
Great.
We got our son back today. He went off to a bit of a school camp for 4 days. So first time out from home, and so we missed him.
Yeah.
How are you, sister?
Just fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
I'm pretty excited today. I just wanted to praise Yahusha and say that Yahusha has literally brought me back from the brink of death, and He saved my life, and that's just what I wanted to share with you today. So you're looking good. How's Amy doing?
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, she just she went off to bed. I said, "Why don't you come to say hello?" She said, "I'm in my pajamas."
I'm not wearing any shoes.
Oh, I love the videos of the children. That was just wonderful.
Yeah, with the
And I'm off to go watch my grandchildren in their spring program rehearsal. It's for grandparents.
Nice.
So I'm getting ready to take off. See ya. Love you.
See you later.
Bye.
Love you. Very exciting.
Be careful driving. She's going, and I was supposed to go too, but we talked about it, and we said, well, we can't do this. We've already missed 2 Torah talks. So.
Oh, and we don't have to worry about a dog.
And the dog. We don't have to worry about the dog anymore. She's finally gone on to meet her maker.
Okay.
So we have a member of our family almost, because remember the little lamb that you know, Nathan was talking to Daoud about, you know, and it was like a member of their family. Well, that's the way pets are, you know. This was a nice dog. It was a kind of a German Shepherd mix, and a nice female dog named Duchess, and we had to take her and have her put down. You know, she was in a bad way. But anyway, oh man, there's been so many things happen, you know.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
I mean, there were some people that came up here and told it from some other place on the planet. They said all our light switches were all installed upside down, and we're driving on the wrong side of the road. There's a new Papa running around out there going, "I'm Pope," and you know, there's all kinds of things going on. You know, I mean, what is that about? You know, I mean, I don't talk to you for a couple of weeks, and then the whole place just flies apart. Anyway, it's amazing the stuff that's gone on.
Yeah, yeah. Can you bring your camera up just slightly?
The camera up?
Just angle it up slightly.
Okay.
Because when you come in, it generally chops your head off.
Oh.
That.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right.
Good stuff. Well,
isn't that
Passover next week?
Yes.
So, yeah, very solemn, important time of the year.
It is, and a lot of people are wondering what they have to do. They have to basically, you know, acknowledge it. I tell you what, if you were going to do a whole background study on the whole Passover, if I was going to pick one of the Gospels, I would pick the one that they call John, you know, because there's so much teaching in there, you know. Of course, John chapter 12 starts out picking up, you know, with that whole deal, how the situation was laying itself out there. And a lot of subtle things are in there when you see it appear. When you're an observer of the Torah, then you see things appear in the text that you would not otherwise see, which is really cool. I don't know if I can illustrate that or not very well, but let me see if I go to John. Let me move your head out of the way. Your head is always right there in the way.
Yeah.
I can move you anywhere I want. Now, this one passage really jumped out at me last night. John chapter 12. Oh, this is it. It's the very beginning of chapter 12, verse 1. Accordingly, his real name isn't John, it's Yahusha. Accordingly, Yahusha, 6 days before the Passover. Now that's a line that would just normally just pass right over a person's head because they wouldn't know what that would be significant about. Well, 6 days before the Passover is when this stuff happens that they're starting out to describe here. Well, he goes to Beth Anya, which is Bethany as they call it, where Eleazar was, and Martha and Mary lived there, you know. And Bethany was a very important site. That was where all the unclean had to stay before they came into the city, and where they had to stay if they became unclean. Well, that whole little community was a little village, Bethania. Lazarus is actually being discussed here, or his real name, Eleazar, and he is actually the writer of this text. Well, there's, I guess we could pick up where we were at. I was talking about Yahusha, or John chapter 12, and it says 6 days before Passover, Yahusha came to Bethania. That's where Eleazar, Martha, and Mary lived. Miriam. Anyway, Eleazar was the writer of this. Actually, that's his name. They call him Lazarus. Very few people know that Lazarus, as they know him, was the one that authored the Gospel of what they call John, because obviously he was being pursued by the Yahudim because they wanted to kill Yahusha and him both, because of the fact that so many had ran after belief in Yahusha because he raised this young man from the dead. Well, he went there 6 days before Passover. Now, this is the very last days before his execution, Yahusha. And what this is significant, the reason this is significant is because it's placing the time of when he went into the city on the donkey, which was the 10th day. Because see, he talks about Miriam and the perfume and why this perfume wasn't sold. And, of course, let's see if I can find it now. Then it says, "The poor you have always with me, but me you do not always have." And then a great crowd of the Yahudim learned that he was there, and they came, and it was not on account of Yahusha only, but also because they wanted to see Eleazar, whom he had raised from the dead. Now that's important to understand too. Now then it says, on the next day, which would be 5 days before Passover. All right, we just do the math in our head in the same chapter. What that is significant of is because on the 10th day of the moon, the lamb had to be selected for the offering, for the Passover lamb. And so it says in verse 12, on the next day, a great crowd who had come to the festival, when they heard that Yahusha was coming to Jerusalem, took the branches of palm trees and went out to meet him and were crying out, "Hoshiana, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah." Now that's significant too. So they're proclaiming the name out loud, and that's something we pointed out a lot of times. It's from Psalm 22, is it? And no, I'm going to have to look that up too. Anyway, the thing of it is, there it is. On the 10th day, the lamb is being selected, So we see the significance of that. Now, Christians, as we were at one time, would see the text of John 12 and read the first line and say, well, 6 days before Passover. And then it says the next day in verse 12, which we know because we observe it and understand it and have studied it. We understand what this is about because these are all festival, redemption fulfillments. You see what I mean?
Mm. Did something happen to Yahusha 10 days before Passover, like what happened to the lamb? Was there something significant in the text to say that he arrived or he rocked up, or just like the lambs had to be picked? Is there something fulfilled in that anyway?
Well, not 10 days before Passover, but 5 days before Passover, because you see, it was the 10th day of the month, that in the first month, that the lamb had to be selected.
Yeah.
So that's the significance of it, because it's fulfilling prophecy, and it points to him being the lamb, because of the fact that it's the day that this happened was so significant.
Yeah. So he rides in, and they set up for the Passover.
Right. Let me see what this is. Yeah, I wanted to check this real quick, and because I've only been up about 2 hours, and I'm not really that awake yet. Let me see. Psalm. Yeah, it was not Psalm 22. Psalm 22 has been on my mind though. I wonder why. It's because of the fact that it's a ghastly psalm to read out loud because of the distress that it describes of the Messiah dying. But Psalm 118, it's Psalm 118, verse 26. And I know this. I mean, it's just that, in fact, I've even pointed out that verse 26 is kind of significant. And I'm not into numerology, but that's something that happened a lot later. But the verse 26 refers to his name. Blessed is the one who is coming in the name of Yahuwah. We shall bless you from the house of Yahuwah. And so Psalm 118, verse 26, was being, in this psalm, was a prophecy of what they were saying when he came into Jerusalem on the donkey. Yeah. Wow. But that would have been the 10th day of the month when the lamb was to be selected. But a Christian would just read over that and not even realize what that meant,
Yeah.
Hey.
Do you find that every time Passover comes around, there's a massive cleansing happening? I mean, obviously there's a physical level where we get rid of all the leaven, but do you find that I guess spiritually is the right word, spiritual cleaning out? Do you find that in your home every time Passover comes around, there's like things start happening more than usual?
Oh yes.
Mm.
You're constantly, and every year during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we generally always find something that we overlooked that's not supposed to be there. And of course, we get rid of it immediately. It's one thing or another, We're not eating it. That's the serious danger. We're not supposed to eat anything with leaven in it. But of course, we can't let the physical overshoot the goal of love and understanding, because we have to make sure that the physical doesn't trump everything else, because a lot of severe people are out there, really getting seriously unfriendly to one another over a lot of things, and that's not what this is about,
Yeah.
But some people will get rid of their beer, and some other people will say, well, there's no leaven in this. Yeast was used in the processing of it. So you're going to have to drink all your beer up probably if you feel that way. And I kind of want to do that too. I want to get rid of the beer. And, something that was made with leaven. But it's really the bread that I think the commandment's really talking about, not beer. But a lot of people be severe about it.
Phyllis was saying last year in the show she did with Amy that something about the leaven. There's certain kind of leaven. There's a leaven that is an active leaven, and there's a leaven. I forget how it went now. Do you know what she was talking about again? Because she said a lot of people think there's leaven. A lot of the things in your house you don't actually have to throw out.
Because it's not living. It's not living yeast. Yes.
Yeah.
Well then, but then if it is living yeast, if it's dead yeast, it's not really yeast. It's just dead stuff. But we still get rid of it.
Okay.
But I mean, really, if we see it as an ingredient in something, we were looking at some odd thing yesterday that had a tiny trace of yeast in it, and they were saying, Phyllis was saying, what do they need that for? They were it was soda crackers. The soda crackers had some yeast in it when it was used, and it probably did some of the rising. Because after all, crackers are not like solid. Some crackers are, but these crackers had a little bit of a puffiness and a softness, which the yeast probably provided, that in the soda. But it's for the rising and the bubbles. So we are going to get rid of our crackers. The matzah looks almost the same, but it's got no yeast in the manufacturing of it. So yeast is something in this particular instance, talking about sinfulness and things that are added to your life that are drawing you away. Otherwise, we want to keep all sin away from ourselves. Always. And this week is one of the tests of that, because we're coming out of Mitzrayim or Egypt, and we have to abandon all those old ways. The things that we were raised with. The sins of our fathers that were taught to us through our customs.
Yeah.
I was looking at one of the Christian newspapers that's mailed to me every week or so, and they have big pictures of bunny rabbits and eggs and baskets, and and I was listening to one of my favorite radio shows that's about the family. It's a program called Focus on the Family, and they were excusing the bunny rabbits and the eggs, and they were giving sort of a pass for all that, saying, well, you don't want to teach little children about the brutality of what Yahusha endured, but rather teach them about the bunny rabbit, and it'll be okay, and the eggs, and the coloring of the eggs. So I'm thinking, what? Didn't Yahusha say that you should not cause one of these little ones to stumble? You know, and what the penalty might be for that. We want to be real careful. We don't teach our children those things.
Or the babies that were slain to paint the eggs.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that was spoken of, and I understand there's a lot of different, mythologies where that passes from, and it isn't secular. Now, the focus on the family program on the radio was saying that these practices were secular, but they weren't secular. They were pagan rites of spring. The rites of spring are varied. They could be a lot of things that point to fertility. The rabbits, the eggs, and all that.
Even if they were secular, so what? It's still not Torah.
That's right.
Who cares if it's secular? It doesn't solve any problem.
No, it doesn't solve the problem, does it? Because you can't add, take away, and you're not to serve according to the way the heathens serve, whether they were serving their customs and their Elohim, as whether it was one thing or another. Don't learn their ways, I think it's Yahoo or Jeremiah chapter 10, isn't it? And I think chapter 23 would be good to look at. But, Passover, though, is a very solemn time, like you said. And we have to be really mindful of that. One of the things that emerged from that, just meditating on that scene when they were with him, when you're reading about in the upper room when they're having the Last Supper, as they call it. Well, that period of time, Yahusha was teaching them, training them. And one of the things that you'll pick up in the text is that they were arguing about which one of them was going to be the leader in charge. It was kind of like what these guys were doing this week, in the chambers, trying to, like with the Pope. It's just like that. Only he's right there in their midst. And it says that there was no, small debate about it. And these guys were in an uproar. There was at least the 12, and we have other people in the room probably too, maybe helping and attending. So you picture yourself in this room, and it's after dark. Some lamps are going on. You just put yourself in that situation. And these guys start talking. One starts talking, another starts talking to another, and then pretty soon there's a clamor. And and lots of voices are just, you can imagine just a big family reunion, and then there starts to be an argument. An argument starts. And while that is going on, Yahusha asks one of them to sit down there, and or maybe he's already lying down, but he starts to wash his feet. And then he moves to the next person, and he moves to the next person. By the time he got to the second or third person, there was a little bit less din, a little bit less noise in the room, and every person kept getting quiet. And then pretty soon, but long before you got to halfway through, probably, everybody they all just shut up. And they went, what's going on?
What's he washing our feet for?
Yeah, and they were paying attention to this activity. Yahusha was moving from man to man, washing feet. Oh boy! And this whole thing was a picture of what they were doing in contrast. He was contrasting what they were thinking about and what he was doing, because you see, the mind of Yahusha is the servant itself. He's the servant. Because he's the greatest. He said that the one who is the greatest among you is the servant of all. Well, when we serve one another, it's not really us. It's him in us that's serving. That's the thing that just blew my mind when I realized that, when our brother Chris was, sharing the concept of letting another person have their way and let it go on and be kind to them and serve them and put them above you. See, that's the whole philosophy of how we treat one another in Romans 12. It's very clear. We should just open up Romans 12 and look at that. If you're watching this, stop and just look at Romans 12, and you will identify the way our behavior is supposed to be. And we're supposed to not think of ourselves any more highly than we should. Well, that's the opposite of what the operation has been throughout history. And that's what we saw this week when they selected their Pope.
How do you pronounce his name? I haven't watched TV this week. I know that I only saw it written somewhere.
Okay. I don't want to
You don't know
attempt that.
Oh.
There was a Borgoglio or something like that. Let me think.
Wow.
His name is Francis now, apparently.
Oh.
He's taken authority over himself, and he is now
Pope Francis.
Yeah. What?
Well,
yeah. Pope.
Yep.
That's it. Go ahead. I just want to open up this news thing, and I'm not really paying close attention to that stuff, but I don't, belittle them. I'm just saying, well, he's an interesting looking gentleman. And they say he's the first Jesuit to be, his name is Bergoglio. I may be pronouncing that but if he is actually a Latino, then he's one of the lost tribes. Well, we know we all are, but all we have to do is just realize the scattering of the tribes. Is that what you wanted me to answer? How do you say his name?
Yeah, how do you say it? Bergoglio. Mainly because there were so many G's in it. I thought, is it Bergoglio? Is there a J? How's it pronounced? J. I thought Bergoglio, Bergoglio. I just didn't know.
George. His name is George. With the J.
Pope
and then his middle initial name is Mario. And then Bergoglio. Yeah. So there it is. Latin American.
Yeah.
So there's 1.2 billion Catholics out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, so what?
I wonder if he's washed anybody's feet yet.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the servant's heart and letting people have it. For anybody who doesn't know, Brother Chris has been... Yahusha's sort of given him this test. And I've been watching it forming for the last 20 years, getting honed down from several rules down to 2. And it's the most effective thing I've ever heard that works. And the first rule is let everybody have it. And when people first hear that, they think, what, let them have it? What, hit them? That's not, no, don't punch them. No, let them have whoever the hell they think they are. Just let them have it. Just don't try and challenge it. Don't try and change it. Don't try and let them know that, no, you're not who you think you are. Get down. Don't, just let them have it. And the second... Sorry?
Romans 12 and Philippians 2.
Yeah, and the second rule is to not take anything personal. And I've said that to a couple of clients, and they said, that works in life too. I said, yeah, big time. It's mainly about life, but definitely professionally. But it's certainly in life too. And like you were saying, it all starts in the home. So he's put forth this test that everybody should be participating in. And you don't tell anybody you're doing it. You got to start practicing it in your home, letting everybody have it instead of getting riled up and getting angry. And I've started trying to do it with my kids now, because they're the main people that rile me up, just because they're children. They do silly things, and they have silly behaviours. Whereas Amy and I are doing it now, and we're finding that you're getting a lot of a softer. It's making our hearts softer, because a good example is sometimes I'll get waffed off and I'll get caught away on a project or something, and I'll be up till all hours of the morning, and I'll wake up like a zombie, In the past, she'd just be off her face, pulling her hair out. Then she just stopped recently. She just stopped. And she just, how you going? What time did you get to bed last night, darling? So then, of course, I feel like a criminal because she's just being so nice about it. Just go and have a shower. Just here's your breakfast, Don't. So then I'm feeling like literally a zombie, and I know it's my fault. So I can't get angry at her reaction because there's none, and because she's letting me have my stupidity. So that's just one example, but and that it goes from there. You let each other have what you're going to have, and it kind of means that person has to have a relationship with Yahusha themselves. And like you're saying, it's all about the servant heart, it's a mind-blowing experience. It's epic. That's what he's been saying. It's epic.
Oh, I heard that word a couple of times. It's amazing, really, and I'm just so excited about it because it distills everything down to that base foundational point, and it can't be accomplished without someone that has the spirit of Yahusha in them. But it's going to save so many lives. I'm talking about all the drama that would otherwise ensue and tear families apart. And that was one of the first things that I thought of, and I told Chris, I said, think of the marriages that can be saved from this and healed by this behavior, And then I thought about the children of those families and how their lives are going to be completely changed. Yeah. Yahusha is Chris for this, and I'm just excited about it. The guy, I mean, when you look at these people, one of the things that I discovered quite some time ago was that what people present themselves as is what other people may or may not identify. Like, for example, if you have a man you call the Pope and you dress him up like the Pope, and he's the Pope because of the way he looks and the way he acts and the fact that he's called the Pope. Well, whatever you decide the person to be and you accept, that's what the man is. If a man comes to your house and he's going to work on your electricity or your plumbing, he may not know anything about either one. But if he has the tools and he's dressed like the right thing, you could have somebody come in there and be an imposter, and if you believe that they are to be what they are, then they are that. And I've told people before too that marriage is that simple as well, because you don't need to have permission from other people to be who you are. So, in other words, a person that's not an electrician can act like an electrician, and through that behavior, they become what they present themselves to be because of the experience that they gain. And the same thing is true of this practicing. You will become what you practice. I don't know if I'm making that clear or not. It's kind of sad because doctors and lawyers, what they do is called practice, which is really bad. Because you shouldn't be practicing. You should be a professional and be good at what you do, not practicing at it. But that's a funny joke. I don't know if anybody gets that. But anyway, the thing of it is, what you dress up to be, what you present yourself to the world to be, like a married couple, a man and a woman fall in love because they're drawn together by Yahuwah, and they become one flesh. Now, do they have to go to their outside authority figures and say, please recognize us as this? No. Well, if you live and act as if you're married, guess what? You're married. That's what you are, because you're doing that day after day after day. And yet people, because of the misguiding teachings of the world system, they even cohabiting couples that love one another but never actually made the step of making a vow in front of people publicly, they will in their hearts deny that they're married. They say, well, I'm not really married. Well, they are.
I've got a mortgage and kids and a life and love each other, but we're not married.
We're not married, no. What? They're married. Yeah. They're in denial. That's all it is. But you are what you present yourself to be to the world. And yet if you said, no, I'm not a plumber, I'm not an electrician, well, why are you working on that switch? Turning that switch upside down again, whatever it is. If you don't have a driver's permit, but you can drive, guess what? You are a driver.
Yeah.
Whether you have the permit or not,
Yeah.
if you can drive and survive it, you're driving. You use the brake, the gas pedal, the steering wheel. You stay on the road. You don't hit the other cars. And after years and years and years and years, even if you don't have a license, if you've been driving, then you can drive. You are a driver.
Just don't get caught.
There's so many different ways. Yeah, you get in trouble with the court, but
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it?
well, yeah, but that's for public safety. I mean, obviously, but marriage isn't for public safety. It's the core of civilization.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, this Passover though, we're getting way off track. There was something that emerged in Mark 10. I wanted to bring up too. Let me see if I can find Mark 10. Let's see.
That's like a speed or something, isn't it? In a rocket, Mark 10.
Well, that's Mach 10. Oh, it sounds like an Australian accent. Mach. Is that the way you say your name?
Mark. Like a
Mach
bird.
10.
Like a bird.
Actually, there was a gentleman whose name was Mach, and he worked out the speed that he assumed sound was traveling at, and they call the speed of sound after his name Mach. Mach 10. Yeah, if we go, that's a long chapter, isn't it? What? Okay, 42. That's a long one. Hey, put your goggles on. Now let's see. 42 says in Mark 10:42, and Yahusha, calling them near, said to them, "You know that those who think to rule the Gentiles are masters over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be servant of all." And then he goes on and describes himself, for even the son of Adam did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for ransom for many. Anyway, that's interesting because that plays into the whole scenario of what we just saw going on in Rome. And where was it happening? In Rome, Italy? What? What's Rome, Italy got to do with anything? Nothing. Why does the whole world of Catholics assume that Rome is significant for anything at all? Rome is the capital of the Roman Empire that is responsible for slaying our Messiah. But we all are, actually. I mean, we're all responsible for his death. He laid his life down. We can't. And Yahusha forgave those men who were doing it, so we have to be forgiving also. We can't, like the Catholics over the hundreds of years have said that the Yahudim were the murderers of the Messiah. And yet, didn't Yahusha forgive them? Forgive everybody for doing that? For doing that to him? So if he forgave them, what are we not forgiving them for? We should forgive.
Every Passover we get the boys to watch that Passion movie, probably because it's the most realistic thing I've seen. A lot of the other older ones are a bit flowery. And I wanted to. I've never asked you what you think of that movie. I know there's a long See, I didn't know any of the Catholic doctrine before watching that. So when I watched it for the first time years ago, all I remember thinking was, I don't think he walked that far, with the cross on his back. But then I was told, I think Victoria told me, each of those things was a Catholic step of, you had to fulfill this step and that step and that step. So then I realised, that's why it strung out so long. Aside from that, do you like that movie? Do you think it was any good?
Well, honestly, I wouldn't watch it. I haven't seen it because was designed to, exhibit some pretty ghastly scenes, and I already have a pretty vivid imagination, but I don't watch that much violence, and I already realized what Yahusha did for us. But if the movie were to be evaluated on the basis of its accuracy, I think that it was probably very accurate, even though I haven't seen it, so I can't really make that judgment, but it is quite ugly. The thing that they did to Yahusha was pretty bad, really bad. It was inhumane. It was inhumane. You wouldn't treat an animal that way. And the Romans were trying to put down all rebellion. They didn't tolerate any, kind of, the fact that Pilate didn't really want to do what he did, but he was the sovereign of that area. He had complete authority, and he would have let a murderer go. In fact, did let a murderer go, one of the zealots, Barabbas, rather than let this innocent person go. But you see, these were all things that were to fulfill the prophecies. All the prophecies laid down for centuries and centuries and centuries. Yeshayahu 53 is a focal point. The suffering servant. There he is, servant. So. But as far as that movie is concerned, I haven't watched it. But he did have to walk a long way, because if you just take a city like Jerusalem, the old city, he was taken from place to place, and Herod was and Antipas was in the city at the time, and it was the same Herod that killed his cousin Yahuchanan the Immerser. And I think it was in Machaerus. There's a remote area on the other side of the Dead Sea.
Was that the same Herod that was killing all the baby boys around the time Yahusha was born?
No, that was his father. That was Herod's Antipas's father. Yeah, he's the one that did all the temple remodeling and expanding of various fortresses. Machaerus was one of them, and Masada. He had a fortress at Masada. In fact, Machaerus, which was on the east side of the Dead Sea, you can see the smoke from Jerusalem when they were killing the lambs or burning offerings, and you could, and over to the left, you could see the Masada, and you could see various other places from that point. It was a really high built. It was built on a very high place, and they just sort of flattened off the top and then built this fortress there. And that's where Yahuchanan the Immerser was killed, on the east side of the Dead Sea. Anyway, the history of all that area, it's really spread out. But he was all over. Yahusha had to walk all over the city. Then when I was a young boy, having been raised in that religious system, the inside of all of their buildings that we call CHURCHs, where they had the stations of the cross.
Yeah, that's what it was. He was going through all these 5 or 6 or 7 of them. They kept falling over all the time, and it was really drawn out. And of course, Mary was there. There was a big focus on her. But that was the part of the movie I found. I thought that's the focus has been taken off the point here. It was all about
They were departing. They were holding to the text. As I read about the movie, they were holding to the text very accurately, using the Aramaic dialect of Hebrew, and saying probably some of the words very, very closely to where they would be understood. But then they started, as you say, when they started incorporating the stations of the cross into the movie, then that was just, poetic license, that they were, it was indoctrination is what it was. It was a movie to indoctrinate, because the ecumenical movement is one of the goals of the URI, and of course Catholicism being underpinning all that, because a lot of people don't realize that the United Nations and the former League of Nations was all a Jesuit conspiracy in order to consolidate powers in one ruling class.
Yeah, that was amazing what you're talking about. We watched that seminar the other day about the tree in the garden, the first form of religion. Was the tree, and they chose unwisely.
They sure did. Yeah, the Torah, the instructions of Yahuwah are what we have to go by. And even the rabbinical Judaism has incorporated men's traditions, and that's what Yahusha was saying. Well, you're setting aside the commandments of Yahuwah in order to keep your traditions, and your traditions are the problem, So we have to stop doing traditions.
We've got a pretty shocking connection tonight, don't we? Can you hear any of that jumping?
I saw a little dialogue box open up that says, "Your connection is lousy," as if I have to think about that. I can't help it.
I can see that. Thanks.
Well, what do you expect? What do you expect for free?
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, and another thing, I made a note too, because we're talking about the Pope and how they've elected a new one. In Acts 10, verse 34, it is apparent from that text that Yahuwah is not a respecter of men. He doesn't care about one man over another, And in 1 Peter 1:17, he's without partiality among us. We're all the same. So if any one of us puts himself or herself above the others, or points their finger at the other people as if they're better than the other people, then that's not a good sign. And in Romans 12:3, we should not think of ourselves more highly than we should. So we have to be he's looking for humility, a humble heart. A servant's heart is what it is. And it takes a servant's heart to do this test. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Do you think that when Yahusha died, I think we might have discussed this another time, when Yahusha died, in the prophetic text in Revelation where it says they're all weeping and crying, and then the Lamb appeared, freshly slain, and he's the only one who could open the seals. Do you think that scene took place when Yahusha died? Because he said to, was it Martha or somebody, "Oh, don't touch me, I haven't presented myself yet." Do you think when he did go and present himself, that was that scene in the heavens?
It fits. It certainly fits. Of course, you're going outside time, and
that's all right.
These things. That's okay. Yeah, because that's where the mind of Messiah is.
I got a time machine.
Yeah, there. But that has an application. I'd say, but I would nail that down and say, well, this is it. This is all it is.
Don't write a book about it.
Yeah, let's not do that. Because that will be, But it definitely connects. Yeah, there's a connection.
Yeah. So what do you think it means when he said to his disciples, "Don't, I'm not going to drink this cup or eat this bread," or something like that, "until I drink it with you in," what did he say, the new kingdom, was it, or in the
at the wedding supper of the Lamb? We're talking about the future. He's not going to drink of the cup again.
Yeah, because some people then say, well, when he appeared, when he was resurrected, he did eat and drink with them. So what was that about?
Well, he was not taking of the fruit of the vine. Though. See, he's not going to drink of the fruit of the vine until he drinks it anew with them when he establishes reign. So it's going to be at the wedding supper when he has his next drink of wine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Why that would be, he'll probably tell us.
He may not have been around. No, he wouldn't have been around for another Passover with them. Because he went up 40 days later, didn't he? Was it 40
Right.
days? Yeah.
Yeah. And when we, he's been having Passover through his body, but not himself as the head being with us visibly. But when he returns, it's going to be physically, not spiritually. It'll be spiritually and physically, really. So he'll fully inhabit his people, and we will get over ourselves and understand that love is the main thing, and we will have joy finally. We can't have joy until we accept the principle of love. You know, when people get in arguments about his name or whatever the issue is, people, you're not spelling it right or whatever, just love them. Let them have that. And you have your understanding, they have theirs. And I'm one of those type of people that wants to track back as far as I can. You know, I want to find out what the origin of it was. And I look at that as the law of first occurrence. You know, the law of first occurrence is the authentic thing. Whenever a particular behavior originated, you know, then we can track it back to that point and see how it became more and more corrupted as time goes on. But you don't look at the last part and look at that and say, well, the more recent is the more accurate. I don't think so, you know, because that's after it's endured all these languages and alphabets and it's really chewed up good. You're not supposed to look at the last thing and say, well, there it is. But, you know, it's the origin of things that have been the most interesting thing for me. But of course, I'm wrong about some of this stuff too, and I don't want to judge other people who have fixed their hearts and gone after something. We just want to accept one another as they are and say, you know what, you're really mispronouncing this, and I don't condemn people that have the J name. I just say, well, that's kind of very wrong, but I mean, it may even, as some people have taught, may even be the name of the anti-Messiah, because when you really look at the text, the origins of the word, of the name 66, of the word 666, it's a name and a number, and it had, in its origin, it was a chi and a key and a sigma, and it had a bar over the top of those three letters. It wasn't written the way you see it when you see the translation. And when you put a bar over the top of three letters, that's an indication that it's a name that you're looking at. And what that bar represents is a titlos. It's called a titlos. And that's the identification of a name. So the actual mark or name of the beast is had a bar over these three letters. They add up to 666, 666.
Didn't Alexander Hislop come to the conclusion that 666 equaled Saturn? That's
another way of formulating it. There's been there's no end to that, the numerology approach. Yeah. However, when you understand that there was no J in that time, the J didn't appear until around the 1530s, when Petrus Galatinus, or Peter Gallatin as they call him now, invented the idea of using the J with a curl on it and calling it that new letter. The Greek iota, which was based upon the Hebrew yod, the Y. Well, when the J appeared in the 16th century, we have to assume that Yahusha, when he was writing Revelation chapter 13, didn't have a J to write J-E-S-U-S. So what he chose to write was a chi and a key and a sigma, which was possibly the name J-E-S-U-S. as he would be able to write it in the Greek broken alphabet. The Greek alphabet is really limited. But
that chi and the iota and the sigma thing that you said he wrote, what is that? What's that in English? Is that the 666 part?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So we've got a Z and an S, which is, well, the name of the Greek sky deity. And we have
Z-E-U-S.
yeah. So we have a chi, which is Christos, if you just abbreviated Christos to chi. So we've got the name Jesus Christos. That is the name that Yahushua said would be the name of the beast, or the mark of the beast, and the number of his name.
Well, I mean, if people saw some kind of figure coming from the clouds, which is easy in today's technology, little rocket pack on or something, and he said, "I'm JSUS," and starts doing miracles, who wouldn't believe in it? I wouldn't, but
Well,
it's highly possible.
Well, then again, the papacy seems to be preparing for baptizing in their religion aliens. So maybe the aliens are about to be revealed. Alien life. Well, it wouldn't be people or beings from other parts of the galaxy or even other galaxies, but they're interdimensional beings is what they are. In fact, that's a lot of the research that's being done is to break through to other dimensional spaces.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Hadron Super Collider. Trying to rip the spaces open, rip the universe open to get to the particles that will enable them to open it up into a ring. They're all about rings and stargates. Just like when you're watching an old Star Trek episode, Captain Kirk is calling the ship from the planet. He's using what we call it today a cell phone.
Yeah.
And these rings that you see in Stargate and all those, they're actually trying to create those things, for teleportation and really teleportation, not only in this physical universe, but to get through to other universes, So.
Doesn't sound like they have yet.
Well, maybe the aliens that we call aliens have been doing that, and that's who's teaching them how to do this stuff. So that the pit will be opened, the abyss. We interpret it to be below the earth, but that's just the way the language had to use it. But it's another space, and the spiritual beings live in a spatial area, and to open up a ring to let them exit, that would be more likely what it would be.
Yeah, there's a whole heap of fallen Malachim that are not roaming free, aren't there? That was in Enoch, wasn't it? Wasn't a whole heap of them bound?
Yes.
So they must be the
Noah.
The baddies.
Yeah. Yes. They were the bad ones. And I think Noah was the one that requested Yahuwah to bind the really, really bad ones so that they would harm his children.
Well,
so
he probably figured that the flood he would only kill them physically. The spirits that were in the Nephos would still be roaming free, wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah, and there were Nephos after the flood as well. Yeah. Nephos.
Yeah. So that's the aliens you're talking about. Aliens.
Yeah.
They're just making shells up so spirits can try and jump into them.
Right, because our bodies are just mechanisms that are operated literally by a spirit. That spirit being ourselves, our spirit is operating our individual mechanisms. And these mechanisms are degrading and they're vulnerable to death. And when we perish physically, then our spirit is basically disconnected from the physical universe. We don't know anything that's going on under the sun. And then when he reclothes us, what gives us a new body at the first resurrection or the second resurrection, 1,000 years later, then we will be again reconnected to the physical realm, and we will be kind of reawakened. So we'll be, as it's returned, it said we fall asleep.
I was under the impression, I'm not sure where I got it from, that Yahusha will not come back until every single person on the face of the earth has made a choice, yay or nay. Is that true? Like, does every single person, because we look at it now and go, oh, he's not coming back ever. Nobody knows. Nobody wants him. Nobody cares. Is every single person going to have to make a choice, and hear the actual true truth?
Well, that's in his realm of sovereignty to decide that, but I don't tend to think that that's going to be the case. And because, you see, he's going to give every person an opportunity, but he's not going to have to wait for them. He's waiting, until the fullness of time, and it's going to happen. But, most of the people aren't going to make a choice at all. They're just going to ignore him, which is what we see mostly. The people that we encounter in the world just sort of they dismiss it. They don't wake up in the morning like you and I and say, good morning, and I love you, and all those conversations that we have with him, because they're not even thinking about it, out of sight, out of mind to them, But then again, there's people that say, well, they make up their mind about what's going to happen, and they make charts. They've got it all worked out. They're going to be in for a surprise too, because he's not following their charts. And he didn't tell them that they were to figure this stuff out in advance either. He just said, when the time comes, you'll see it. We're watching. We're not planning and charting. We're watching. And we're watching not in the future. We're watching now, So we can't be in the future. See, we have to go moment to moment and comprehend what we can. When we see the signs happening, then we can say, I see what's happening there. When you read the text at the beginning of John or Yahusha in chapter 12, and it says 6 days before Passover, you understand what that means, because that means the next day they were going to select the lamb. These are indications of things. We can look back and understand things, but we really can't look forward. People are writing books and saying, look, the planets are doing this and that. Oh, no, don't do that. When you see the meteors falling, you can probably say, well, I think I know what this is about. But it has to be happening now. You can't plan for the meteors. Say, well, meteors are going to fall in the year 2016. It might happen any time, And the things that are going to happen, that are going to unfold, are going to happen in rapid succession. He says, I come quickly. That doesn't mean he's going to lollygag and stumble around for a while and go, well, that happened 10 years ago, and then the next thing's going to happen. It's going to happen quick. And we're going to recognize it, if we're watching. But I'm not planning stuff, and making charts. The ones that do have all fallen by the wayside, and they still get back up and start making the same plans that they did before. They'll say, well, that didn't work out. Let me make a new chart. Then there's a new one. And then a portion of the people that they tricked before will follow them, and then it'll, keep going. You just don't want to do that.
No. Oh my goodness.
I mean, what's our job?
Yeah.
What did he give us to do? He said, go and teach all the nations everything I commanded you to obey, and immerse them in the name. And that's it. The word and the name. It's always that.
Yeah.
How that isn't obvious. I mean, Chris boiled it down to two things. And, when some years ago, he put me out there to say, There's two things, the word and the name. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's really, really simple. If you get complicated, it gets confusing to people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So one of the most important and overlooked practices in the practicing of Passover is the foot washing, which is really important, I think, given what you were saying about the servant's heart. And everybody's having all these religious ceremonies and flicking water and all sorts of matters, and we should be getting out and washing each other's feet. Do we wash each other's feet? We went through a thing where we were washing each other's feet, and then I think somebody said something about it's supposed to be just the priest of the home who does it, and then I think it went back. What's the understanding again? I've forgotten.
Well, there's not any procedure. You can do it so that people see it happening, and the head of the household usually does it. That would be the way to do it. Of course, washing one another's feet is even more profound, and he said to do that, but it isn't a commandment in the sense that, okay, lake of fire for you, get over there. It isn't like that. It's a matter of us understanding this servant's heart. The greatest among you is to be the servant of all. So we're all one another's servants. And that's what Romans 12 illustrates very clearly. But yeah, I would very much encourage people to wash one another's feet, the husband and the wife and the children, and everybody do that. And it just takes a few moments, and it's just a little picture, and the children will see that, and it's really good for everybody, no matter their age. Every year, whenever you obey a commandment, there's something to be seen inside of the behavior that you didn't see before. No matter how old you are, no matter how many times you've done it. That's what makes it really sad when you understand that the Catholics instituted this thing called the Mass, where they have a Passover every week or even every day. Every time they do that procedural liturgy, then they call it the bloodless sacrifice. And, it's done so much that you tend to go through the motions, and the priests just spout out the words. In fact, when I was in, they were speaking Latin. That's how old I am. And then they changed it over to English, or the indigenous languages of the people, or wherever they were. So those things kind of make it more of a behavior by rote, and they don't have a real tie to it. If they did it once a year like they were supposed to do it, the Passover, then it becomes more significant, because you see the other redemptive feasts as well, but they're outside of that.
Yeah.
Looks like you're getting sleepy. Are you getting sleepy?
No, I'm okay. I was just thinking, the whole concept of the Mass in the Christian scene was like the I think they'd call it the altar call, or the Lord's Supper or something like that each week, and you'd bring. Yeah, one of the circuses I was in, everybody was encouraged to come and kneel in front of the cross. They'd take their bread and their cup, and there was all a little pretty music playing. It was a real intimate moment where you dump all your sins on there and confess everything just to the Master. But I kept thinking to myself when I look back, you just keep doing the same stuff each week. You don't actually overcome. There's no power. There might be a recognition of sin, a recognition of, we're just all dogs and nothing, and we can't, control ourselves. But the whole idea of overcoming, there's no power in that name, in that fake name. Because when you come into Yahusha, you feel it. You start doing things wrong, and it's just, it's pain. You get so tired of the pain, you overcome.
You can, when you have a relationship with him, you can actually feel when his face turns away from you. You can feel it. It isn't like he's too busy doing something elsewhere. You can feel his face turn away from you. And where'd you go? Where are you? And that's what Daud felt, the psalmist. You know, he was feeling his face turning away. And, you know, that was removing his spirit, you know, just withdrawing, you know. It's a conversation. You have to stay connected to pray always. You have to stay connected with him. His, prophecy is the testimony of Yahusha. So if you open your mouth, I open my mouth, or another that is a follower of his opens their mouth, he's speaking. And we have to listen to his voice when it connects with Scripture, and we understand that he's interpreting Scripture, interpreting not the future events so much, but interpreting what has happened and what it represents in our lives and how we're supposed to learn from this. But he teaches us through one another. And it doesn't have to be a leader. He could speak through a donkey, but you know, an unsaved person. I've had prophesying happen to me by people that were surprising. You know, people that the world would consider to be retarded people. And then the retarded people open their mouth and speak, and the truth that comes out of them is him. It's him talking. And we have to be listening, you know.
Wow. Yeah, David said at one point, "Take not your set apart spirit from me," didn't he? He was right into that.
Yeah.
So important.
Well, that's the reason he went away, was so he could bring his spirit to us. And it's him. It's Yahusha. People want to know, who is the Holy Spirit? Who is the set-apart Spirit? Who is the Ruach HaKodesh? It's not a thing. It's a person. And his identity is actually withheld from most people. They don't know who he is. They know he's real, but they don't really know who he is. He reveals himself to those who he reveals himself to. There's actually a text about that, and I can't recall where it is, but he's speaking and teaching his disciples, his students, and he's explaining to them that, you know, the Son of Man is that his identity is only given to those that he reveals to himself to. He chooses, not we don't choose him, but his identity is Yahusha. That's who he is. Now, who is Yahusha? That's the real thing. The identity of Yahusha, even if you realize that the Ruach HaKodesh, or the Holy Spirit, as they call him, is Yahusha, then who is Yahusha? Who is he? There is no other Savior but Yahuwah himself. He is the deliverer. I think it's Yeshayahu or Isaiah chapter 43 that talks about that, you know. And I would read 44 as well, because his identity is withheld from people. He's an Elohim that hides himself, but he reveals himself to those who he reveals himself to. I am who I am. You know, I will be who I will be is what his name means also. You know? Yahuwah means I was, I am, and I will be. And that's represented in the first chapter and second chapter of Revelation, where he's talking, you know, to Yehukanan. And, you know, he reveals himself. But Yahusha is Yahuwah. That's who he is. He humbled himself.
Yeah,
You know, he humbled himself.
They have a hard time receiving that, don't they? It's such a big thing.
It seems to be.
The Father took on flesh and became Yahusha. How hard is that to understand?
It's difficult to wrap your head around it, but when the creator of the universe, the one who made everything seen and unseen, revealed himself in a person in order to show us what it's like to be a servant, that's an infinite step to make. You know, for us to become, I mean, we're mud. That's what we're made of. We're dust. For us to humble ourselves should be easy. But for an infinite being like Yahuwah to humble himself and to put himself through the torture and display himself the way he did so that we might have salvation and deliverance from our sins, that's amazing. But all we have to do is just accept it and say, what in the world was I thinking? and then not judge one another. You know, be kind and learn how to love. When you receive His Spirit, you understand. You know, you don't look at things from your perspective anymore. You see things from His perspective. And that's what is exhibited in your life. You see everything from His point of view, because that's what the mind of the Spirit does. And the mind of the Spirit is going to be a servant. And the greatest among us is the one that's the servant. And He is that servant. That's why we can't be saying, I'm a servant. No, He's the servant in you. And that's why you're able to serve. Because you can't do anything in your flesh and say, well, I did this and this and this and this. No, it was Him that did this and this and this and this. You are not anything, you know. You're a vessel. If you're an empty vessel, He fills that vessel as much as you empty yourself. If you don't empty yourself, then He can't fill it because you're occupying it. I don't know. It's nuts.
Yeah. So the degree of usage that you are is the degree that you die to yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that Chris has been illustrating in his test. You know, and I'm just, you know, the depth of the simplicity of that and the importance of it and the weight of it is just something that it takes time to comprehend. You know, Yahusha is guiding all of us in various ways to show us things, to show us behavior, you know, that we should have. As we behave, not only to one another, but in His presence, because He's always around us. He turns His face towards the humble, you know. The humble is the one that gets His attention. The one that lifts themselves up and tries to be competitive and push others aside. That's very wrong. That's very wrong. We have to pray for one another, you know, and put the other first.
Well, you can see that Yahusha was letting everybody have it most of his life. Like even in that illustration you made about him washing the men's feet. He didn't just come in and go, well, "What the hell are you all going on about? I'm the boss here, you know. Now, what are you going on about? You know, you don't have a clue what you're talking about. Like this is how you might talk to your kids. That's not letting them have it. You know, that's the he's this high and mighty person, and so he lets them have it. He just gets on with the daily. He gets on with the meal. The first thing they have to do is wash the feet. He just gets on with it. They're all just stuffing around. He gets on with it. Very rarely did he actually lose his temper. You know, and even when he's hanging on the stake, he didn't take it personally.
That's exactly right. I was about to say that.
Sorry.
We might have the same hive mind.
That's spooky.
There's something going on. But we're talking from one end of the planet to the other. You're in Australia and I'm in North America.
Yeah. We wonder why there's a few seconds between it.
I think it's rather fast.
It's going all right now.
Yeah, it's doing better and better.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
So yeah, you go.
Oh, I was going to say I could talk for hours and hours about what Chris and Victoria were like. You know, all the incredible things that went on there, and we talked about you quite a bit.
Oh, you did not.
I think you were our favorite topic, other than Yahusha. And yeah, you were number 2.
It's all true.
Well, that man loves you.
It's all true what they said. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah, they said they had a lovely time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was everybody, brothers and sisters, you should be letting each other have it. Husbands and wives, let each other have it. You can't tell each other you're doing it either.
One of the things that makes people really fearful is fear itself. But when a husband and a wife, or any other situation where you've got two people, and one is behaving in a certain way that might freak the other one out, the one that gets freaked out by the behavior of somebody else thinks that they've lost control over the other person. Like, for example, a man comes home and finds out that his wife was doing some things that maybe cost them a little extra money that they didn't expect to pay or something, and the man he feels like she's losing control. He's losing control over the financial picture or something, and he flies into a tirade. Well, what he needs to do, or if it's the wife, she needs to just say, okay, well, this is fine. That's what you decided to do. Want to talk about that? Instead of letting it feel like they're losing control, because you aren't in control anyway. You might be under the impression that you are, but you're really not in control of your environment or other people, because we're not supposed to be in control of other people. You know? See, the manipulation of other people is wrong. And that's the core problem. We are not to manipulate one another. We're just to be living examples. And we are supposed to be controlling ourselves. It's self-control, not the control of others. So when we think we're controlling others, then we're likely to be setting ourselves up for finding that we're not in control, and then we get afraid, and then we get angry. Because fear leads to anger. Because you're out of control. You don't feel like you're in control, so you get mad. And I've felt that many times. Not many times, but some. You know, and my wife would do something, and then I'd go, and then I'd get afraid. And then I got angry. And that's got to be that's a completely wrong approach. We have to let the other person do what they do and not try to control them, but let them have their opinion and their behavior. And then maybe if they want to talk about their behavior, they can talk about it, but do it in a very neutral way and not take it personally, just like Chris was explaining. Because it's when we take it personally, that's when the fear and the anger starts. You know?
Yeah. Yelling.
I'm loving it. I know it. You don't have to.
I'm just taking what you're saying now. I'm thinking of the kids when you're talking about control. That's the one thing that gets under my ear. Like when you come into a situation, and as you can imagine, with lots of young kids, it's like throwing a whole heap of bouncy balls against the wall. You just, you know, watching it. You just walk into a room and you just go, "What the hell?" You know. And so when you're talking about control, we're not to be controlling one another. I know you got to discipline your kids and all that, but I'm thinking that's probably my problem. I'm not in. I'm fooling myself. I'm not in control to start with. You know.
Yeah.
That's
all
really
we can
helpful.
do. All we can do is guide.
Yeah.
And teach, and show by example, and let them learn from the consequences of what they did that was not productive.
Yeah.
It isn't up to us to be the policeman. We have to police young children, of course, but we have to be gentle with them and not break their spirit, so that they can learn from their consequences, and they can learn to choose the rank priorities and say, well, if three things are possible and I pick the worst thing possible every time, then I might have to go through endure the discipline of that, you know, take the stripes from that, you know, flogging.
Yeah.
And we can flog our children physically, but not in anger, just discipline. You say, well, if you do this, hold out your hand. Okay. Like Chris does that a lot. Hold out your hand.
Yeah. 50 lashes for you.
It's so precious. It's the flogging, see? And we don't have to be cruel. We can say, hold out your hand. That is as effective as severe paddling on the rear end, because it's letting the person put out their hand, and it's making them do something behaviorally that is offering their hand for discipline, and then they get a little tap. It's just a little tap. And it's not even hard. It's just a little tap. Well, the point is made. Point is made. That's one of the things that I didn't know until I saw Chris doing it. His behavior in implementing this is so amazing. It's showing me the techniques are the same, whether you're paddling their behind or their hand is sticking out. They have to actually physically act. It's a way of repenting. Especially with young children. I'd like to do my children over again now. I'd like to have a do-over. But they've turned out remarkably well, even though I was inexperienced.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. You want to get together next week? That'll be a couple of days before Passover.
Well, we've missed 2 weeks already, and next week I have to postpone as well till the next week. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But let's do it. Let's skip next week because of something that's come up. I've got a doctor's appointment I've got to go to. See, the residual surgical procedures, we have appointments that we have to keep with various doctors and procedures that have to be done because this is post-operative thing. Phyllis didn't want to tell anyone about her surgery. 16 years ago, she had a radical mastectomy. And 2 weeks ago, when Chris and Victoria were here, they were at the hospital all day with me. Wow. And she had her second one. So, yeah, that was, it was scary. And she's doing great. The doctors are even amazed. The doctors are saying, what in the world's going on? She didn't even have to stay in the hospital overnight. She's a strong girl. And she had very little pain. And she's off of her meds. So but she does have to go through some other things. There's little technical things that have to be done. And they're being taken care of. And I have to do this thing next week with her. I've been spending the time with her. And sometimes that has to be done.
Oh, that's understandable. No problem, brother. We'll catch up in a fortnight then.
Okay.
We can start chatting about Shabuah.
Yes.
Whatever else comes up.
Right. Well, I encourage everybody to read Yeshayahu or Isaiah 53 and Romans 12, for our proper behavior, and Philippians chapter 2. But for the Passover, start at the book of what they call John and start reading at chapter 12 and just go all the way through. But on Passover, all they have to really do is, read a little of Exodus and a little of the chapters there at the end where he's being executed and then the resurrection. Those things are all pertinent. And that'll put him into the whole mindset of his suffering, death, and resurrection.
Well, one of the most important things you said last time, I should say, is that we're never going to get it perfect. We're never get the feast perfect. It's not about us. It's about what Yahusha's doing.
Right.
Keep your eyes
and
on
and us recognizing, and we can do whatever we want to do, and as much as we want to do, it doesn't really matter. But what we have to do is teach our children the significance of that, and by going through this very thoroughly once a year, we can reassess everything, and everything fits together perfectly. Well, it was really great seeing you again, brother, after so long.
Yeah, ditto. It's amazing, mate.
Yeah.
You have a great week or two. And,
okay.
We'll catch up.
Have a good Sabbath. I'm going to start my Sabbath at sunset, and your Sabbath is almost over.
No, it's midnight here, so it's halfway.
Halfway.
Not quite. Yeah.
Okay.
Love you, mate.
Love you, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
People, it's all or nothing now. You're either a weed or you are done now. You're breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. People now. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. You're either wheat or tear. You're breaking my heart with your unbelief. I ain't gonna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? You're either hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. Oh, now. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? People, you're hot or you are cold. And people, it's all or nothing now. All the while shall shine like the brightness of the sky, leading souls into righteousness and truth. Yeah, lifting up Yahusha in all they do. Yeah.
Aliens walk among us, brothers and sisters. They do. Don't you know that? Genetically modified organisms. They walk among us. Open your eyes. Check out this amazing study. Brother Lew's already covered it. He's explained it all. It's happening. As he said, Yahusha's preparing his bride. We can't be deceived. Get into it now. Go on.